Going through divorce can be rather messy, and it's important to take charge and get informed so you make really good decisions. So today we're going to talk about how you can be empowered and make better proactive decisions instead of being so reactive. Today we have with us AnneMarie Hill, and AnneMarie has some really interesting, fascinating things to share with us, and she has a great personal story too. So AnneMarie, welcome to our podcast, and tell us a little bit about your background, how you got to where you are today doing what you do, and the why behind it.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. My background, I was a family therapist. And so I was working with families and I understood, people feeling empowered. And what happened was I ended up in a divorce situation that I wasn't prepared for. And I really wasn't ready. I was like, what? And I remember sitting like it was yesterday in the middle of my bed with two little children running around, and they were little, and going, what do I do now? And feeling very frightened, very unempowered. And I just didn't know what direction to take. And everyone said, you need to talk to an attorney or a lawyer. And I'm like, yeah, I understand that, but that's super expensive. Don't really want to do that at, 300 plus an hour or 200 plus an hour, whatever you run into out there. It can get really expensive. And I described it as my vision was I'm going to take a big, huge tap or faucet, attach it to my bank account, and it's going to run out. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. So my ex and I muddled around, tried to figure it out for ourselves without attorneys or lawyers. And we do actually get along relatively well. But, at the end of the day, I did sit with the lawyer and I did look the whole time at my watch, tick, 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 and thinking dollars out the window. And I didn't want to delay my quest. Like I was really trying to expedite the meeting. I was trying to make it move really quickly. I was like, who knows if I even really was paying attention because I was so concerned about how much it was costing me sitting there. So fast forward after my divorce, I discovered a service out there that I thought, are you kidding me? Well, I'd gone through divorce. I was a landlord. I was a business owner. I had two little kids. I need a will and power of attorney. And I was like, you mean to tell me I can call for a flat monthly fee, subscription based, and I can get answers? And I don't have to pay a big bill at the end of this? Are you kidding me? And at that point I said, oh, I know so many people because I knew about the family. I was doing family therapy work. I was helping people out there. Took a pause raising my kids, but still was very much aware of people out there that needed this service. And I thought to myself, if I had had this service, would it have made my approach and my whole situation different? Absolutely. I never wanted anybody to ever feel like I felt with, I just don't know what to do. I didn't have any direction. I didn't know what to do next. I didn't know anybody that had at the time gone through a separation or divorce. And I just thought, I have to do this and I have to offer this to people because I can prevent other people from feeling the way I felt. We take something that's expensive in the marketplace and we drive the price down and we make it affordable to people so that they feel empowered. They feel like, wait, I can have some direction. They can be proactive, as you say, in their approach to all of their matters, as opposed to, oh, it's not that bad yet, or, oh, maybe I'll Google the answer, which isn't always the right thing to do, right? If you just don't know. And so I thought, this is awesome. This is a North American service where most of the people I know live. I can help people. And so I got very passionate about that 15 years ago. And I've sort of been on that, that tangent of empowering people, make the right decision before you're reactive in your decision, before you're in a crisis point where you're like, now I have to hire. Now I'm in that position. The other thing too that I find is that I have helped a lot of people who unfortunately went through the traditional sense of the system. One particular story, a gentleman came to me and he goes, my ex and I agreed on everything. And then we hired the attorneys and the lawyers. And then we each spent $20,000 to come to the same conclusion we had before we ever spoke to the attorneys. Exact same, except they were both now owed $20,000 each. And they also had been going through some nasty bitterness between the two of them because now they're in an acrimonious, they're in a fighting state, as opposed to let's just know where we stand and let's work this out. And I'm not saying that it's always going to be perfect, but at least you'll go in to any negotiation feeling empowered and feeling like you have a direction, or you know what your obligations are, you know what your rights are, or you know what next steps to even take. So I love that I can help people catch them early and say, listen, even if you're thinking about going through a divorce, maybe you haven't made that decision even yet, wouldn't it be nice to be able to find out where you would stand if you decided to go down that path? So sometimes it's even helping people to make that decision going forward in that direction is, okay, this is it really that bad? And okay, this is where I stand. And now I feel calmer making that decision. So that's a little bit about my background. I've helped thousands of people feel that empowerment. And I do feel very passionate about it because I was there. And I think so many people going through, if not every person who goes through a separation divorce, haven't done it before. It's an unknown where to begin. So giving direction.
Yeah. And there's plenty of friends out there that will give you advice. And usually that advice is, they scare the hell out of you with all the watch out for this and don't do that and so forth. But it is scary. And I think a lot of people will avoid, even if they are already in the process and they have the attorney, they'll avoid asking questions because they know every question costs money, that every time they send an email or make a phone call, that they're getting billed, by every 6 minutes or every 15 minutes or whatever that attorney's structure is. So they don't ask because that costs money, when maybe that was a really important question, which could have saved some money, who knows? But exactly. It's really neat to know that there's another way out there to go about it that's not so cost prohibitive.
Exactly. And I mean, I even had, one of my members, she'd gone the traditional way. She knew what I did. And I said, when are you going to and she'd be phoning me and so angry because every email that she sent out, every phone call, every message she left, she was getting a bill in the traditional way. And I said, when are you going to allow that bleeding to stop? Would you let me help you? And then she did. And she goes, oh, I should have done this before. And I'm like, I know. I tried to tell people that, but sometimes they just they don't.
So what does that transition look like? So for someone that's already in the throes of divorce, already has an attorney, they're hemorrhaging money, and they want to pivot. They want to go a different direction because it's not working. Does another attorney come in and take over that caseload under this service, or how does that work?
Great question. Well, they would have to actually fire their attorney. And I don't always suggest that because sometimes you're so far down the road to start over again is going to be still cost prohibitive because the person that has to catch up on all the stuff that's already read through all the stuff. So I don't really always, that's why I love catching people sort of at the beginning, because once you're already down that road, it's harder.
Yeah, I had an attorney tell me when I was in the middle of my divorce and things were not progressing the way I would have anticipated based on the factual data that I had given my attorney. So I had talked to this other attorney in town, and he actually ended up becoming a judge. But he told me, and I really respect him for this, he said, here's what I tell people: don't change horses in the middle of a race. You're in the middle of a race. Stay on your horse.
Yes, good. Yeah, that's a good analogy. Yeah. Now, that being said, I have had people who are in the middle of the race, but the horse ran out of fuel. Didn't want to run anymore. And in that case, meaning really what happened was I've had a number of members who ran out of money. And guess what? The attorney doesn't want to call you back because you can't pay another retainer chunk. And so then they're stuck with, well, now what? I'm partway through. Now what do I do? Okay, well, this is better than going it alone. Get some advice, see what you got to do. But I've heard so many stories of people who go, I have this amount set aside, but very quickly it's gone.
And then what?
And then what? And they're not getting anywhere. If the attorney's not getting paid, they're not moving forward. right? But in
That's
our
so true.
situation, you know, for a small monthly fee, you can move forward. You can have that kind of freedom to go, okay, and brainstorm. And sometimes it's, as you were saying about asking the right questions. I have used the service myself for my separation divorce after the fact. I'd already been divorced when I got the service. But what I found was like 8 different times my separation agreement, it cost me $600 the first time I went to an attorney in the old way. Okay. Every single time I didn't get a bill, it saved me $4,800. They wrote letters on my behalf. I didn't have to pay for that. They gave me insight. They gave me direction. And I went, oh. And in some cases, I decided to do something with it. And in some cases, I was like, no, I've got an informed decision. Now I can decide where I want to go with that. So sometimes they'll give you, here's the good, the bad, and the ugly. You can decide what you want to do with it. Here's what we might suggest, but you can choose the path. Right? So that's really helpful. And you can, they will help you brainstorm things you haven't thought about yet. So when I was in one of my conversations, they were like, oh, you didn't have anything to do with, say, a life insurance policy. And I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that. What if, the person who's paying support payments passes? Do you have something in provisional set in there to cover you for the length of the time your kids, until they're adults, for example, right? And I'm like, didn't think of that. And so they help you brainstorm.
That's a common one. I was speaking to a lady just last week, and we were mapping out all of the assets and all the accounts, and not that they had a whole lot, but we were, various ones. And she listed life insurance. And she said, so I said, so you have life insurance? She said, well, he has life insurance on me. And, and he had for 20 years. It's not like it's some weird case. But she said, what should I do about that? And I said, well, you can't really do anything about that. That's his policy. He's the owner of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to explain that to her. I said, so it's not like it's your life insurance. It's his policy on you. And he probably took it out when you had little kids. And he was thinking, if something happens to her, I need to be able to provide for the kids. I need to be able to hire a nanny or whatever, and have somebody to come take care of them. And she said, well, what if he cancels it? And I said, well, if he cancels it, it doesn't hurt you because you're not benefiting anything from it. Yeah. So, I think that's, one area where people do get really confused of ownership and beneficiaries and things like that. But it is something I also think that we often overlook when we're getting a divorce, as considering it an account, an asset, whatever it is, however it's set up. But we miss it. We forget it.
Absolutely.
AnneMarie, this is so very big. I have to ask the question because when you're going through a divorce, there's so many pieces, as you talked about, that slip through the cracks. What about wills and powers of attorney? Can LegalShield help with that?
Absolutely. So, that's one of the many blessings of this membership is that you don't have to worry about that. Most people are like, I don't want to get a will done, or I don't need to do that yet. And they haven't even put their other kids on. They might have had it done way back when. A lot of people think it's, when they're going to be passing. No, it's so important to have it because really the default, depending on your state or province, but the default, if you don't have an up-to-date will and power of attorney, it's going to be going to your ex and giving them the power to, if you were, heaven forbid, in a coma, for example, and they say, okay, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to unplug or stay plugged in? Would you want your ex to have that power? I'm thinking not. Do you want them to be able to, I just had this happen to someone else. Actually, they didn't even get their divorce papers yet. They're dating other people. It was 12 years ago. They're like, we're good. I just don't have the paperwork done. Well, depending on where you live, that ex party, your ex-spouse, is the beneficiary of your estate a lot of the time, unless you have that will and power of attorney. So with PPLSI and LegalShield, your will and power of attorney is part of the membership for both financial as well as medical reasons, you're going to be able to get those put in place. And then if you do have a future spouse, they're covered as well, but you definitely want to have that in there and keep that up to date. It's a way to protect your kids, your families, and make sure that your wishes are known, as opposed to maybe your ex-spouses, because the last thing you want is for them to have that kind of power, in my opinion. And how the service really works as well, just to give you a bit more of an idea, is phone consultations, unlimited. Pick up the phone, hit the app on your phone. I put my website on there as well, but underneath where my name is, but, hit that button and be able to talk to an attorney and say, I need some advice on, and get as much advice as you need to, and have a conversation. So within, roughly 8 business hours, an attorney will call you back and you're going to have a conversation, whether it's a landlord tenant matter, which is another one. When people are going through a separation divorce, they might not have enough funds. They're now facing becoming a tenant. What's in that lease, for example? Do you know? Let alone the divorce thing. We're talking the whole and all encompassing everyday life experiences. So maybe they're going to be buying, maybe they'll buy a new house, but maybe in the interim they're renting. What's in the lease? What rights do they have as a tenant? Ask those questions. Have the lease reviewed. That's all part of it. Up to 15 pages, covered and included, reviewed, and definitely helpful to have in place for any of those documents. My separation agreement, I had it reviewed 8 different times. It was 12 pages long. 8 different times I had that reviewed. That would have cost me $4,800 traditionally. Having the service, it didn't cost me anything more than my monthly membership. So it was very empowering to be able to have that and go, not sure what it is. Kids are older now. Different things came up in the agreement. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know where I stand. Whether it's removal from benefits programs, for example. Well, imagine if it says in your agreement, you're supposed to have benefits when your spouse, as long as your spouse can provide those, and then your spouse takes you off. Just because, it happened to me, and the attorney wrote a letter, and my ex did a little dance with his HR department and got me back on my benefits. He was not allowed to just take me off until he had a new spouse, which he did eventually. But in the interim, I was supposed to be still covered. That was our agreement. Would I have called an attorney on that? I don't know. I might just let it go. I'm not really sure. But because I could, I definitely did. And I was empowered to do so. I was like, no. I have rights here. I'm going to find out what those rights are. So those are some of the things, the wills and powers of attorney, as I said, are covered and included as well. And so much more with the benefits. So.
Well, to me, this sounds like such a no-brainer to get something like this in your corner, because like you said, not just divorce, but just all the facets of life that we all encounter at some point or another in our life. This could be just such a valuable benefit to have. How would people get in touch with you?
AnneMarieHill.com is my website. So they can go there. It's a redirect to we are independent associates. So you don't want to go to the corporate site. You do want to, it's more expensive to do that. You want to go to someone like me, reach out. I can also give you my phone number if that works too. And give me a call or send me an email or go to my website, which has all of that information as well. But more than happy to help you out. I know how it feels, and you want to have that kind of empowerment. And not only that, but too, you're going to then get some hand holding, because I've been through it and I help a lot of people with that. So that's sort of a value add to what I provide people, as opposed to going to the corporate site and just signing up. And that happened recently, and someone didn't have an independent associate that was advocating and kind of helping them to actually use their membership. I've used it 110 times. So I've used it well. I've kicked the tires on it well. One of the other things too that we provide that's important and worthy of noting is we provide ID Shield, which is identity theft protection and restoration, including a VPN. So securing all of your devices when you're in Wi-Fi so no one can hack you. It also includes ransomware and malware protection, a password manager, gives you credit counseling as well. And also I'm going to tell you right now, your ex-spouse has your social security or social insurance number. What are they doing with it? They also have your kids' social security and social insurance number. And the stories I hear of the identity thefts going on because they have access. If they're in a bit of a pinch, they can easily set up cards and take out money, and your information's on those cards or on a loan. I had someone who took out, their ex took out a $10,000 loan. They fraudulently signed off. They had all of that person's information to set up and get qualified for the loan. Wasn't them, but they were on the hook for it. Now they have the services. So now we do monitoring. We monitor on the dark. We monitor everything. And what we do is we do comprehensive restoration to restore your identity back to pre-theft status. And that is really valuable because, again, it helps you to sleep easy at night. We have plans that cover your family, your kids, your kids, you're covered. They're covered. It's just really peace of mind for everyone involved. And I think it's pretty interesting too. One of the things I had happen as an everyday life event as a single mom, my daughter was away at school. Well, she was now suddenly a tenant and she had a lease. And so she had it reviewed and the lawyer explained to her everything that was in that lease. So she felt empowered at the age of 19. She had a different landlord another time who was trying to take advantage of them being students and tried to say, well, you owe me for all of these things. And it was not legal, what he was asking for. I said, honey, you need to call your lawyer. You have them. Hit your app on your phone and request a consultation. When she's like 20 years old that time, she's like, this is cool. I've got my own attorney and my own law firm in my back pocket. Would you like to talk to them? It's not about suing people. It's really just about gathering information and finding out where you stand and then making informed decisions and not feeling bullied or manipulated. And I think often too, when we're going through a separation or divorce, unfortunately, that can happen way too much because we just don't know. And when you don't know, you're not in a very good bargaining position to access your rights.
That's well put. That's perfect. And I think that that's what happens more times than not is that women feel bullied, whether that's the name that they put on it or not. They feel backed in the corner and they don't know how to come out fighting, so to speak. And not that it has to be a fight, but it's just knowing what your rights are and being able to stand confidently in those rights.
Yes, exactly. That's it. And it's the confidence it provides. It absolutely, whether you're a business owner or you're going through a divorce, it's knowledge. Knowledge is power.
It is.
And it's really hard to explain to people how it feels because you do feel like I'm not worried anymore. If the IRS, part of the other service I forgot to mention is that if the IRS or the CRA, Canadian Tax Department, if they come after you or they want an audit, that's also covered. You're going to get some tax audit assistance. That's peace of mind too.
That is.
Often we don't know. I mean, I had it happen. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. Okay, whoops. Knock on the door. Not quite a knock on the door. I got a letter, but calling the law firm going, what do I do? I've got this letter from the tax department for them to then take my stress right down. They just said, it's okay.